Hi everybody, this is Mr. Molina. I'm putting together this video to supplement the PowerPoint, okay? In this video, I'm going to be covering most of the slides in the PowerPoint, but not every single slide. But I got to say, the PowerPoint, the information in the PowerPoint and in this video will be on your quiz. So don't make the mistake of simply reading the PowerPoint without watching this video or watching this video without reading the PowerPoint. So please be aware of that. And okay, so here I wanted to put together this video to make some ideas like really clear and make you see why this issue, this topic of epistemology is important, number one. And number two, I want you to understand what is the underlying tension in epistemology. What is the issue, right? Because there's always an issue. What is the issue with epistemology? And that's something I wanted to make it very clear to you, and probably something that is not very clear in the PowerPoint. So here's the video. Now let's begin. Defining first, what is it? What is epistemology? Epistemology is the philosophical study of knowledge. And in epistemology, we philosophers, we ask these kinds of questions. Number one, what's the nature of knowledge? Number two, how does knowledge actually happen? How do we acquire knowledge? Okay. Three, is knowledge reliable? Is it objective? Is there room for subjectivity or relativity in knowledge? And finally, what is the relationship between knowledge and truth? I don't know if you've ever asked yourself these questions, right? But I think they're very interesting questions, and they're very important too. And the underlying issue, the tension in epistemology or problem, has to do with mostly with questions 3 and 4. Okay, and it is mostly something like this. How do I know that what I know is reliable, is objective, right? How do I know that what I believe to be true is actually true? It's true in an objective way. It's true for most people, perhaps everybody. How do I know that I'm not fooling myself with what I believe to be true, right? I hope you see the connection immediately between knowledge and true, right? Because when you think you know something, okay, you think you know it because you think it's true, right? So you immediately assume that your knowledge is true. But okay, that's another epistemological question. How do you know it's true? What standard can we use to know that what we know is true? It's true in an important objective way. And in the issue of relativity, because nowadays, right, and for the past few years, I have to say, people have this way of talking. They say, you have your truth, but I have my truth. Okay, and so everybody has a different truth. So truth is subjective, it's personal, it's relative. So there's nothing that we can agree and say, okay, that is true for like everybody. So that's the issue. Is knowledge, or is at least some knowledge, objective, or is it all subjective? And the Greek philosophers, have to say, the very first philosophers, the pre-Socratics, they were the first ones to put their finger on this issue, right? And one of them, went so far as to say that we don't have knowledge of anything, of the world, even of ourselves. Like, we don't know anything with certainty. There's no certainty. All we have is opinions, and people vary in their opinions, but there's no knowledge that it's accessible to all in an objective way. There's no way to find consensus or universal consensus when it comes to what we know. Yes, we can have consensus in other instances. For example, when our interests align with those of other people, right, and we agree and we can have some sort of consensus, right? For example, when you agree with people and with in regards to politics, right, and you agree, who is the best politician, right? And there might be some consensus there with you and the people you probably hang out with. But okay, that's different from knowledge and having and making knowledge something reliable, something that you can be sure of. That's a different thing. I hope you see the difference. So, well, in this video, we'll survey some of the most important ideas and philosophers who have wrestled with this question. So, if you do have a question at any moment during the video, remember you can always use the weekly forum. I always encourage you to do that, to use these forums to address any question or comment, and give me the opportunity and your classmates to respond and make these ideas more intelligible, right? More clear. So here we go. Let's go to the first or the second slide. René Descartes, French philosopher and mathematician René Descartes, is known as the first rationalist philosopher of the modern period. The first rationalist. What does that even mean, right? Being a rationalist. What is rationalism? Basically, rationalism holds that knowledge is purely rational and a priori. That is, knowledge does not come from sense perception or experience. That's what it means that knowledge is rational. A priori, that means prior to experience. Okay, so according to this view, rationalism, what I know, everything that I know to be true about everything, it's not the result of my experiences growing up and learning things and reading books, but it's actually something that it was already here, innate in my thinking. How is that even possible? Okay, you might be thinking from the start, okay, this is a weird notion, okay? But consider this though. Descartes today would say something like, okay, that there are structures in our thinking that are there from the very beginning, okay? I mean, from the moment I guess we acquire the capacity of thinking, uh, we have structures of knowledge, and with these structures, we're able to understand, process all the information we receive through the senses. But the knowledge is not this information that we see. It's actually the result of this a priori structures or ideas processing all the information that we receive through our sense perception and experiences. Does that make any sense? I hope. So that's the argument. So what we know, we know it because of the rational structure of our thinking. And that rational structure is a priori. It has nothing to do with experience. Okay? So, but there's more. Like Plato was another rationalist in antiquity. Descartes was fascinated by the objectivity of mathematics and its universality. That was the thing that got them develop this argument, at least Descartes. The fact that everyone in the world can grasp and work with numerical relationships, like everybody can. Descartes concluded that such universality of mathematics proves that knowledge is present in our minds as soon as we're able to think, and that all we believe we learn from experience is actually the result of these a priori ideas. So, mathematics. Okay, if you take the skeptical position, right, the position of someone who says, no, knowledge is just purely subjective. Like there's no certainty Okay, that's the skeptic position. There's no certainty in the world. And everything we think we know it, but there's nothing, again, objective. People vary in their thinking and their ideas, their opinions about things. For example, the room might feel like really hot for some people, and for other people it feels nice. For other people it feels warm. Okay, so who is right? Okay, that's the skeptical position. And this has been the problem, right, in epistemology. Is our knowledge safe? Is it reliable? And the answer Descartes is giving us here is something like, yes, it is. Consider mathematics. That proves that knowledge is reliable, is universal, actually. But not only that, is a priori. Everybody who is a thinking person, right, have access to the same ideas, and all these ideas are going to turn out to be true. All this information, this knowledge is going to turn out to be true because reality is rational, and the structure of our thinking is rational. That has nothing to do with experience. Mathematics. Okay, let me give you an example. The square root, the concept of the square root. I think it's a great concept and a fascinating concept. If you try to explain to someone who has never heard about the idea of the square root, let's say it's a child or something like that, somebody who knows at least the basic arithmetic but never heard of the square root. If you go to a person, any person like that, or a child, and you say, hey, I'm going to explain you a mathematical concept. Okay, the square root. What is it? Okay, it's like this. The square root of 4 is 2. Why? Because 2 times 2 equals 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. And here's another example. The square root of 9 is 3. Why? Because 3 times 3 equals 9. So people will get it, and they will go, oh, okay, so the same number, if you find a number that multiplies by itself, gives you x. Okay, let's say y multiplied by itself gives you x. So the square root of x is y. Exactly. So, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so that means, right, this is the other person, the person you're teaching. That means that the square root of 16 is 4, because 4 times 4 equals 16. Right. Oh, and then the square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 equals 25. Correct. Okay. They get it. And okay, so now they have a new knowledge in their minds, the knowledge of the square root, and they can use the square root in their mathematical operations, calculations, right? And all these calculations are going to give you, if they're correct, right, they should give you the same result. So for the rationalist, knowledge is like that. When you're reasoning correctly, okay, we should all get the same knowledge, and the information that we have in our minds should be the same, in the sense that everyone in the world will say, yes, that's true. Your information, the thing that you know, that you believe to be true, is correct. So knowledge is something universal, because that is the structure of our minds. It's rational. And that, you see, that has nothing to do with experiences, because people experience different things, right? They have different upbringings, right? And so on. And yes, those things might give them a different view or opinion about things, but knowledge, no, knowledge is something, it's something different within, what we know. Knowledge is rational and it's universal, because it's a priori. Just like 2 times 2 equals 4, just like the square root of 9 being 3, that proves that knowledge is fundamentally uh, rational, a priori. You don't go around and experience a square root. No. You don't perceive a square root and you just go like, okay, that's a square root. I recognize it. No, you see, it has nothing to do with sense perception or experience. We are born with this a priori ideas categories, whatever way you want to call them. But this structure of our thinking, it's already there. And it's present in everybody's minds. So what we know, it is reliable, it is universal, if it is rational. Interesting, don't you think? Do you agree with that view? Do you see any problems? Let me know through the weekly forum. Let's go to the next slide. John Locke, British philosopher, took the very opposite position regarding knowledge and thus made popular a view that is known today in philosophy as empiricism. Okay, so we had rationalism with Descartes, and now we have empiricism with John Locke. What is empiricism? The belief that all knowledge actually comes from sense perception and experience. Okay, all right. So John Locke actually made a very, very good case for his position in this book called An Essay Concerning Human Understanding. That's the name of the book. Okay, An Essay Concerning Human Understanding. He basically makes it very clear that knowledge actually comes through sense perception, and I mean, take pains to explain the development of how we acquire at the beginning bits of knowledge, information about the world, and then we build on that information, knowledge, and we keep adding more and more to the edifice of what we know. But all this stuff is a result of experience and sense perception. So nothing in our minds, it's really there from the beginning. It's a priori. So he believed that we are born with a blank slate in our, like we have a clean, let's say, hard drive when we are born. So no information in our minds, zero. Everything we learn through sense perception and experience. So, but then he says that knowledge is actually a posteriori. So, okay, so now we're dealing with these fancy Latin expressions, right? A priori, a posteriori. Just so you know, people in this period, they used to write everything, all their philosophical work, and sometimes even their poetry in Latin. That was the official language in among intellectuals, let's say. So they use these fancy Latin expressions. So for John Locke, then, knowledge is a posteriori. It comes with experience. And again, the mind is some sort of clean hard drive or blank slate. So, okay, that was his position. Many people found it very credible. Like if you read this book, An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, you'll see that he makes a pretty good case for his position. But what about mathematics? What about the square root? That is not something people experience. How can you build the concept of the square root? And that's a very easy concept. But the concept, and think about other concepts in math, in algebra. Like, wow, man, the variables and think about geometry. That's another fascinating discipline, right? And like the triangle. Who has ever experienced a triangle? And then all the knowledge implied in a triangle that happens to be pretty solid, pretty objective, universal. Like the sum of the angles of a triangle equals 180 degrees. Like always, everywhere. No matter how you feel about triangles, that is an absolute truth. and then you make the calculations with different triangles that you draw or you see, and they're going to give you the same result. When you sum their angles, you're going to get 180 degrees. So, gosh, how do you explain that? That seems to be something that is outside of the realm of experience and sense perception, don't you think? So, what accounts for that, for our mathematical knowledge or understanding of mathematics? And yeah, perhaps the wise position to take would be something in between, right? Yeah, some of the stuff we know it's actually a priori. Like there's some categories or whatever in our structures, in our thinking that are pretty universal, that allows us to comprehend mathematics. But there are other things, right, that are not universal. They know they don't, they have nothing to do with these structures. Really? Okay, so you see, so in the end, who's right? So we already dealing, or we might be dealing again with the problem of skepticism. So who's right? No, nobody's right. Just because there's no certainty. I mean, this thing proves that there's no certainty. We cannot be certain about anything. Well, except mathematics, right? But if we can be certain about mathematics, maybe this is an argument, maybe we can be certain about other things. Maybe we can be certain about everything. The only problem we're having is that we're not doing our calculation, our thinking correctly. Just like when you make a mistake in math, right? Instead of using a minus sign for a plus sign, and then you get a totally different result, right? At the end. So, okay, you make a mistake, and that's probably what we're doing with our knowledge. That's why we disagree about things, that we're not doing the thinking correctly. Anyways, some people adopt the skeptic position, and because arguably it's convenient, and I want to spend just a few minutes talking about skepticism because it's very, very important. Taking this position that nothing is certain, there's no certainty in the world, right? Everything is just it's relative. All knowledge is relative, everything is subjective. People have different truth, and that's okay. There's not just one truth that applies to everybody the same. Not such thing. Everything it's subjective and relative. I would say, and I'm not the only one. I actually have some important philosophers on my side. I'm thinking Plato and Aristotle. They thought that people who are skeptics, people who adopt this position, are lazy. They're intellectually lazy because it's easy to just say, throw your hands up and say, you know what, not there's no certainty. That's it. Your truth, my truth, everything goes. Okay, that's an easy position to take. Easy, why? Easy because you're not doing any research. You're not investigating anything. You're simply giving up and taking this assumption that there's no certainty simply because it's convenient, so you don't have to do the work. But if you do the work, then you're going to find certainty in a lot of things. Okay, but I want you to be aware, friends, of how appealing the skepticism can be. Appealing because, yeah, it's easy. And think about how many people today are skeptics. They consider themselves skeptics or agnostics, right? So when it comes to religion and belief in God, okay, we talked about this in a previous video. To me it seems simple to say, yeah, I'm an agnostic. I don't believe in what I don't see. Okay, that's it. Have you done any research? Like, have you I don't know. Have you considered the arguments against your position? Most of the time, people who claim to be agnostics, they simply think it's a cool position, it's the right position to take, but they don't have any grounds. They don't have any, they do not present any evidence. I'm talking about most people that I've talked to who consider themselves agnostics. So with regard to knowledge, it's similar. It's easy to take the skeptic position and make knowledge and truth something relative. Okay, to me, I agree with Plato and Aristotle. That's being intellectually lazy. So let's consider, though, somebody who took a very interesting position about skepticism on the next slide. G.E. Moore. Regarding knowledge, English philosopher G.E. Moore took a stand for common sense. I like that. Actually, I love common sense. Insisting that there is a vast amount of shared knowledge about the world, expressible in ordinary language, and about which we can be quite certain. So there is certainty. He argued, if skepticism is true, we do not have knowledge of the external world, but we obviously do have knowledge of the external world, therefore skepticism is false. Simple argument, right? We do know a lot of things about the world, and we are quite certain about that knowledge, and it's pretty solid, pretty objective. Like many people, if not most people, would agree and say, yes, that's true. That is good knowledge. Gosh, I can give you so many examples, but I will tell you though about a conversation that I had with a student, right? An interaction. A student who claimed to be a skeptic. He said that, he was a radical skeptic. He said, no, there's no certainty. The certainty, it's an absurd notion, he said, something like that. So I said, okay, so you're a skeptic. Okay, you don't believe in certainty, in certain knowledge. He said, yes. Okay, I said, okay, well, um, how did you find this room, our classroom? And he was like, what do you mean, Mr. Molina? I said, how do you find this room? Like at that point, we had 2 or 3 weeks of classes because normally I address um, epistemology like in week 3 or 4, week 4, I would say. And I said, how do you find this classroom? He said, well, we always have classroom here. I said, are you sure? How can you be so sure if there's no certainty in the world? Okay, and he was like, well, I was here the first day, room 111, right? And then the second day I was also here, room 111. So, okay. So I knew the class was here. So I said, okay, then you do have certainty of where the class is. And no, oh, yeah, but something can happen. Maybe one day I can be here and you wouldn't be here because maybe something can happen. And I said, okay, but that's different. But that's different. That does not mean that you cannot rely on the fact that our class takes place in room 111. I said, okay. Explain to me this other problem. I said, okay, let's change the scenario. I said, okay, when you're driving, I said, do you drive? He said, yeah, I drive. Okay, so when you're driving and you see a red light, what do you do? And he looked at me and he said, well, I stop. Why? Why do you stop? He said, come on, Mr. Molina, everybody stops on the red light. Are you sure? Well, maybe not. Some people don't care. Okay, that's true, right? So how do you know, I mean, when to stop and when not to stop in a red light? Maybe you should go. I mean, I said, don't you have a hard time every time you see a red light? Don't you struggle within you thinking, gosh, what should I do? Should I stop? Should I go? Like I said, honestly, do you have that conflict within? He said, no. Okay, of course not. Of course not. You know, a red light, you stop. Green, you go. That's how it is. And because you are certain of that knowledge, you can drive. And I tell you what, you're also certain about the knowledge of the streets, right? So you know how to get here from your home, right? Driving. You know when to turn left, when to turn right, where. And you're pretty sure, right? Because you're here in class like on time. Like, so you know how to get here. You're relying on something you know for sure, something you're certain about. So there is certainty in the world. So, okay, okay, just another story because I this one uh, was something. I was in working on my graduate studies, right? My master's degree, and I gotta say in UNC Charlotte. So, and we're taking a class. I don't remember. I don't think it was epistemology, but we were discussing epistemology. And the professor, he was a skeptic, right? The skeptic. And he was like, oh, just trying to convince everybody that there's no certainty. And I remember, I was just listening. I was like, oh my God. And this student, this classmate, she says, oh, that's incredible. She said, I don't believe what's true anymore. Okay, and to me that was like, okay, I felt like I had to do something. I said, hey, so and so. We had a small class. We were like 12 students and the professor, and we used to sit at a round table in a small room in UNCC. But anyways, I told this girl, this classmate, I said, listen, um, okay, there was some maps on the desk on the table, and some maps with even campus maps. And I grabbed one of those maps and I opened it and I said, okay, I said, do you see what this map says right here? I said, okay, look, it says that building A is next to building B, according to this map. And it says that between building B and C, there is the cafeteria. Okay. And I asked her, is this true? And is this reliable? Can you rely on this map? Do you, when you see a map, for example, you're looking at, okay, building A next to B, and then between B and C, there's the capital. Do you have any issues with that? Any struggle? Do you, because there, you think that nothing is true, nothing is certain? I mean, does that really happen to you? Do you have that issue? You don't, because this is the truth. This is the truth. If it just happens to be the case that, okay, you're looking at a map, a campus map, and you see, okay, building A is next to building B, and between B and C there's the cafeteria, and if you go out and you check, if you happen to see that there is a mistake with that it's not true, okay, this map is not true because the cafeteria is not between building B and C, it's actually next to building F. If that is the case, then you know what people would do, what you would do, and anybody, if you would immediately call somebody at CPC and let them know, hey, your maps are messed up. There's a mistake with your map, and they will make the correction and then print new maps and put them in places. Because what's the idea? The idea is not to trick people with the maps. The idea is to help people, give people some reliable, objective information, give people certainty about where the buildings are in campus. So you see what I'm saying? So here's something very important. Okay, this is going to be on your quiz, so it's very, very important. Nobody is a skeptic. Like, you can be skeptical about some things. I'm skeptical about many things, especially politicians. Like, I don't believe in what they say most of the time. So you can be skeptical about some things. But I'm not a skeptic. And I believe that no one is. No one is a true hardcore skeptic. Like, no one. Because if you were that a skeptic, like a real skeptic, then it would be difficult for you to know what to do at a red light. Like, truly, honestly, you would know what to do. You would go like, okay, maybe I should go, maybe I should stop. Okay, but you never do that. Nobody does that. Nobody lives that way. Nobody. We act always with certainty of where we're going and how we get there. For example, when it comes to going to school, and we know the way. We know where class is, what time we have to be there. We rely on knowledge and rely in a way that it's, again, how can I say, certain, certain. So I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make this very, very clear. Nobody is a skeptic. Nobody lives skepticism. Skepticism is something nobody is able to live. Nobody can live. Because the moment we decide to act and to move a finger or to go out of our place, our homes, and we want to go to the whatever, the grocery store. Okay, we have knowledge. We're relying on certain knowledge of the world. It's not the case like we wake up in our beds and we'll go like, okay, I'm hungry. Am I hungry? I'm not sure because there's no certainty. Should I have a sandwich or pizza? Well, if I'm gonna have a sandwich, where do I find bread? Do I want bread? Okay, friends, I'm sorry. Hopefully that's not you, because if that's you, okay, then you need professional help. Okay. I hope you see what I'm saying. Nobody lives skepticism. It's unlivable. It's not real. So people just simply use skepticism conveniently to avoid doing the real work. That's it. So I think I made my point here. Bertrand Russell, British philosopher and mathematician, another mathematician. Um, it's interesting, don't you think, how many, perhaps most of the philosophers in history who were really concerned about epistemology, they had a thing for mathematics. So you probably know why at this point. Anyways, Russell is famous, among other ideas, for his correspondence theory of truth. Okay, an approach to truth that originally comes from Aristotle, I have to say. But Russell added a very important feature, a very important distinction we're going to talk about on the next slide. Anyways, according to this theory, objective truth is possible whenever a belief about the world is supported by a corresponding fact or event in the world. Meaning, okay, whatever you believe about the world, if it aligns with an actual state of affairs in the world, then that belief is true. It's objective. It's knowledge. So, okay, I'm going to give you some concrete examples on the next slide. And so let's do it. Okay, so Russell makes this very, very cool distinction, okay, when it comes to knowledge. He says, okay, there's two types of knowledge: knowledge by acquaintance and knowledge by description, or knowledge of truth. So, knowledge by acquaintance, here's an example, or actually three examples. I like the movie. That's knowledge by acquaintance. My knee hurts. I think, therefore I am, which is an allusion to Descartes, the first philosopher in this video, who is famous for making that claim, that statement. And okay, he says, okay, this is knowledge by acquaintance, but knowledge by description, of knowledge of truth, objective knowledge, is a different thing. It's a different category of knowledge or beliefs. For example, the movie is directed by Martin Scorsese. My knee hurts because of arthritis. I am an American citizen. So according to Russell, these statements, they imply, or they show, they belong to a different categories, right? The I like the movie, it's one category of knowledge, and the movie is directed by Martin Scorsese. That's a different category of knowledge. Knowledge by acquaintance, Russell says, is always true for the person who believes something to be the case. Always true. But that knowledge cannot be considered certain or true in an objective way. So think about it. Knowledge by acquaintance. When you say, I like the movie, and you believe that, well, then it's true. Okay? It's true that you like the movie. Of course, there is no way to uh, verify that what you're saying is true in an objective way, meaning it's not something that it's evident for everybody, something others have access to. The key word here, friends, please, this is going to be in your quiz, the quiz. The key word is verifiable. Okay? Knowledge by acquaintance is not verifiable. But if you believe the movie is good or great, you believe that, well, that's true. If you believe your knee hurts, okay, you actually believe this, well, it's true, but it's not true in an objective way. Okay, so let me finish with the paragraph. The same is not the case with knowledge by description, according to which your beliefs can be objectively false, no matter how firmly you believe in them. Or there's some stuff that you might believe to be true, but this stuff, if it belongs to the category of knowledge by description, then it doesn't matter how much you believe that to be true. It might be false. Okay. So descriptive knowledge, therefore, can be either true or false, depending on whether a given belief is supported by a fact or event in the world. So, once again, knowledge by description is verifiable. That's the difference. There is no way to verify knowledge by acquaintance. When someone says, "I love the movie," okay, if that person believes that, okay, that it's true for the person, but it's not true necessarily for me or for other people in some objective way. So you know what? This is really interesting because this distinction allows us to see when, when the conversation is something like we said at the beginning of the video, like when today people talk about, that's your truth, but it's not my truth. And when people talk this way, this is appropriate when the stuff they talk about it's knowledge by acquaintance. Okay, so there is that type of knowledge that it's personal. That's it, it's personal. So, okay, so there is room for that kind of claims, right? That's your truth. It's not necessarily my truth when it comes to give your opinion about a movie. Okay, I think the movie was great. And you disagree, and you can say, well, that's what you believe. That's your truth, but it's not my truth. I think the movie sucked. So there's room for that kind of language or expressions when we're dealing with knowledge by acquaintance. But you see why the distinction is important? Because if we're making a different claim, if we're saying the movie is directed by Martin Scorsese, okay, okay, that's different because we can actually verify. We can look that up. We can Google it, and we can see if that is true in an objective way. Okay, let me see. Let me look it up. Let me see in the Google. Well, yeah, it's true. I'm looking at in Google and it says that it's a fact that the movie was directed by Martin Scorsese. So, okay. So when it comes to that realm of knowledge, when we're talking about knowledge by description, then there's no room there for that's your truth, but it's not my truth. No, 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 no. Here we can verify the information in your head that you believe to be true. We can verify it. And because you're now in the realm of objectivity. Okay. So when you say, yeah, my knee hurts. Okay, well, you believe that? Okay. Who knows, right? Okay, maybe it's true. But when you make the claim, my knee hurts because of arthritis. Okay, wait. That is something we can actually verify. Or we can at least consider the possibility of, if that's you making the claim that your knee hurts because of arthritis, okay, you can go to a doctor and you can have some sort of testing and some examination, and it can be determined pretty safely scientifically whether arthritis is the cause of your knee pain. Okay, now you might believe it's arthritis, and I'm thinking of, boy, a lot of All the friends that I have that make claims like this, they're so certain about their condition without being, doctors or scientists, but they say this kind of things all the time, right? When someone says, it's just arthritis. My arthritis is just killing me. Who knows if that is true? Maybe it's something else that's killing you, right? Maybe it's a different condition. But that claim belongs to the category of knowledge by description. It can be verified if it's actually arthritis, the cause of your pain. Might be something else. But you see, here, there's no room for that's your truth, but it's not my truth. There's no room for relativity or subjectivity in this case, in the case of arthritis, in the case of the movie being directed by Martin Scorsese. Okay, there's no room for relativity here. We can verify, we can check. So I think it's a really neat distinction, don't you think? And then I guess what we have to do is be mindful of what kind of claims we're making about the world, what kind of knowledge we are entertaining, right? And simply make this very simple analysis. Okay, this knowledge, this thing that I believe to be the case, that I believe to be true, is it uh, a knowledge by acquaintance or is it knowledge by description? Is this something that can be verified? Because if it's personal, well, if it's personal and you believe it to be true, then it's true, right? It's true for you. But if it's something that can be verified, you maybe want to make sure that what you're believed to be true in this case is actually true. If you're thinking that it's arthritis the cause of your knee pain, why don't you make sure it is arthritis? Why don't you go to the doctor and verify it, right? And gosh, people make all kinds of comments about the world, about the economy, politics. Oh goodness. And claims that again are in this category of knowledge by description. It's stuff we can verify. And I mentioned politics because, gosh, politicians, they accuse each other of a bunch of things that are not true. And some people believe it without verifying it. So, interesting. So there you go. I guess this distinction puts some responsibility on your shoulders. It should, or you should feel that way. If what you think to be the case is actually something verifiable, verify it so you can be pretty sure that your belief or your knowledge is solid. Okay, let's go to the next slide, and we're going to consider a philosopher that is my favorite philosopher, I have to say, who sort of complicates this distinction of knowledge by acquaintance and knowledge by description. So let's talk about him. Soren Kierkegaard, Danish philosopher and known as the founder of existential philosophy, Soren Kierkegaard. He has a very, very interesting, thought provoking take on knowledge and truth. And according to Kierkegaard, the only knowledge that it's relevant, existentially speaking, the only knowledge that matters is knowledge we have the choice to live. Think about it. If I cannot live it, then that knowledge or information, it's just irrelevant, or it's just not knowledge, it's just information. For example, for Kierkegaard, 2 plus 2 equals 4 is not knowledge in an existential sense, at least, right? 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's not knowledge because there is no way we can or cannot live it. I mean, 2 plus 2 equals 4 is just the way it is. It doesn't matter how you feel about it, how you live. It doesn't matter your dreams and your struggles in life. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change the fact that 2 plus 2 equals 4. So for Kierkegaard, that it's just information. That's it. But it's not knowledge. Knowledge for Kierkegaard is something different. It's something we can live. At least we have the choice to live it. So Kierkegaard once said, a true idea, it's a lived idea. Okay. True idea, it's a lived idea. So for Kierkegaard, Knowledge must be inseparable from action. Like those two things must go together. Because if there is a disconnect between what you know and how you live, you are going to suffer existentially and even psychologically. There's a lot of psychology in Kierkegaard's philosophy. As a matter of fact, famous psychologist Carl Rogers, he was a big fan of Kierkegaard because there's so much psychology, right? Good psychology in Kierkegaard. But I have to make this clear. The disconnect between what you know and how you live. Actually, that reminds me another great quote by Kierkegaard. Gosh, I forgot to put it here. He once wrote, if if people if people don't become, oh, what's the quote? If someone does not become what he knows, he does not really know it. If you don't become what you know, you don't really know it. You're confused. You're confused. So whatever you know, whatever you believe to be true, must be seen through your actions, through the way you live. So that's so interesting. And this is why this idea complicates Russell's distinction of knowledge by acquaintance and knowledge by description. Because Kierkegaard would say, yes, the stuff that you know, it's actually verifiable. Even personal stuff like knowledge by acquaintance, your knowledge by acquaintance is actually verifiable. We can see it. Uh, think about the case of the movie, the statement about the movie. If you make, let's say, you make the statement, I love the movie. Okay, knowledge by acquaintance, right? Your knowledge is true. And it's knowledge by acquaintance because it cannot be verified. Okay, yeah, but here's something though. If you're a big movie fan, if all the movies that you really liked, you watch them over and over again or many times, and you said that you love this movie, but you have never, watched it again. You just watched it once. And normally, when you love movies, you talk about these movies for days, right? And maybe you like to write opinions about the movies you've watched, but you have written no opinion about this movie you said you love. So you see, your actions are not aligning with your claim that you love the movie. So you see, I can verify your claim that you love the movie, and I can be skeptical, and I can say, no, actually, not even skeptical. I can just say, no, you don't. You don't love the movie. You didn't love the movie. No, that's not true. Why? Because of this behavior of yours does not match your statement. Here is an example from real life. Sadly, students who have told me several times, Mr. Molina, my education and school is very, very important for me. Okay, that's knowledge by acquaintance, right? Because, who can verify that? If you say that school is very important for you and you believe that, okay, that's true, according to Russell. And it cannot be verified. But wait a minute. I've seen students telling me these things, and I don't believe them because their actions show otherwise. And I remember once I had this conversation with a student because I had uh, I could say, right, I could tell him that we had a good relationship. Let me put it that way. And I confronted the student. I said, it's not true that your school is important to you. It's just not true. And he said, why? Because you don't come to class every time. Like you have missed class a few times, and you have missed assignments. And I've seen the time where you submit your assignments. The assignments you submit, that you submit normally like 20 minutes before it's due. So if school was important for you, then you'd had a different attitude. Like my personal case, right? I was a student for about 7 years, right? When I did my bachelor's degree and then my master's degree, totally about 7 years. Do you know how many times I missed class in 7 years? Zero times. Not one day. I did not miss one class. You know how many assignments I missed? Zero. So, okay. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying. I don't even have to make this claim. Oh, school is very important for me. I don't even have to say it. My actions show what I believe to be the case, what I believe to be true. It's seen in my actions. I don't have to tell people how important, my family is for me, how important my daughters, my wife are for me. I don't have to go around telling people. But if you see me with my family, with my wife and my daughters, you will know how important they are for me. And this is knowledge by acquaintance, right? But you can verify. You can look at my actions and go like, true, yeah. He cares a lot about his family. So, hmm, so quite interesting. And yet it has to be lived. So when you say you care a lot about school and your actions show otherwise, then you don't. You're lying. You're lying to yourself. And you're confused because if you believe that it's true, but your actions show you don't care about school really, then you're confused. And because of this disconnect in your life between your beliefs and your actions, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer in your life. And that's one of the goals of existentialism is that you live authentic lives, that you really mean what you say, that you're the same person here at school, at work, everywhere. You're the same person, that your beliefs align with your actions always. If that is the case with you, then you're going to be fine. You're going to be healthy mentally speaking, and existentially, you're going to have a great life if you manage to do that. But anyways, I love existentialism. I can say 100 things about it. Now, Kierkegaard make these outrageous claims. He has made some crazy claims, but this is one of them, and he's very famous for this claim: the truth is subjectivity. Yes, which does not mean that truth is relative. No, truth is something subjective, personal, like my truth, your truth. So is that what Kierkegaard is saying? No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying simply that truth is personal. It's personal. That's it. You might believe something that in the eyes of other people or everybody, it's just wrong. And you believe to be true. But not only you believe it, but you live it. If you manage to live your belief, even if your belief is wrong to people, right? To most people or everybody. But if you manage to live that belief, then it's true. It is true. Because truth is subjectivity. Wow. So you might be thinking, okay, so Mr. Molina, we're back to that issue of your truth, my truth. No, 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 no. No, no. No, we're not. Because it's not if somebody says something about whatever, anything, I let's go back to I love the movie, right? If you make that claim, I love the movie, um it's not like, okay, that is relative. That's true for you, but that's not true for me. No, if for Kierkegaard, it's again, I don't see, I need to see that you actually love the movie. Like that has to be seen through your behavior. If it's not, then you're just confused. So that's basically what he meant with this statement. Truth is subjective. Well, not simply that, but there's a whole lot more to that statement. But quite a statement, don't you think? Who cares about, because it's kind of like this. It's like, who cares about objectivity? Who cares about believing in stuff that it's reliable, and it's reliable because everybody can testify it, everybody can verify it. Who cares about that? Kierkegaard would say. If it's stuff that you cannot choose to live, it's irrelevant. But everything else you can choose to live, and that is the real deal. That is the real deal. That is the real knowledge. But the truth of that knowledge is you determine it. You actually make it true through your actions, through your life. Okay. Well, I don't know. Tell me what you think about that idea. Okay, so last but not least in this video, I want to talk about William James, American philosopher, known as the founder, another founder of pragmatism, American pragmatism. If you Google it, you're going to find William James, probably first name. Pragmatism is the school of philosophy that holds that truth has a mere practical value. James did not believe in absolute truth based on correspondence between beliefs and events in the world. Truth for James is a dynamic, evolving concept. Interesting. Okay, now take a look at this quote. Yesterday truth is today's falsehood, according to this is William James. And today's truth is tomorrow's half-truth. What really matters is what you can do with a belief, what difference it makes in your life and your community. So what an approach. Doesn't it sound like Kierkegaard, right? So do you see how this philosopher sort of agrees on some things, and they sort of there's like common grounds in this, all these different ideas and philosophers. And so what matters, according to James, is what we do with what we know, what we believe we know. But truth being something that evolves. In the end, what matters is what works. Okay, that's pragmatism, right? If it works, and it's true. Tomorrow might not work, so tomorrow then might not be true, but that's just the way it is. So truth changes, evolves. I remember in the video of God and philosophy, I remember we also addressed William James and his take on the God question, right? On the idea of God, and he believes that it's unquestionable that this belief has a lot of many important contributions and benefits. Okay, benefits. Belief in God has given rise to so many good things, like thinking of the food pantries, for example, who are religious based, right? And communities, religious communities who are mindful about the poor, and they want to help the poor. That's a good thing. Religious institutions, organizations like AA, right, that help people with alcohol addiction, and this is a religious institution, in case you didn't know. And in the AA meetings, they always pray, for example, so they acknowledge God, and so and that's something that has proven to be very, very effective in helping people with their alcohol addictions and other addictions. So it works. Okay, so belief in God works, produces great results. So does God exist? James will say, of course it exists, right? He exists, or she, or whatever. We don't know God's preferred pronouns, right? So of course it's true that God exists. So look at the results. Look at all the good things. Look at all the things that people do for God. Look at people, how much people find hope and meaning in God. So definitely it exists. Okay. But tomorrow maybe, we'll find some, we'll make some amazing scientific discovery, and probably we will prove, probably, right, that there's no God. And okay, then it'll cease to be true in the future, right? But today God is true. He exists based on It's the same idea. It works. It's an idea that works. So there you go. There you go. So I mean, you can think about the traffic lights again, right? Is it true that you stop at a red light? Of course, it's true. Okay, but it's not an absolute truth. Maybe, who knows, in the future we'll change our mind about traffic lights, or maybe in other places in the world. Maybe they use different rules. To my knowledge, that's not true, but I'm just using that as an example. I'm speculating. We can change our mind about many things, right? And that's okay. For now, what we do know and what works for us, the knowledge that works, allows us to do things, build things, get to places, and get stuff done. Okay, that's true. It's true. It works. It's true. So, but then here's the problem again. We talked about at the very beginning of this video, the problem of relativity. So knowledge is relative to time, to outcomes. So so there's no actual absolute truth, absolute knowledge. And then we'll start the conversation again, I guess, with mathematics. How about geometry? How about the square root? That stuff doesn't change, right? Um, it will never change, right? I mean, think about it. Will 2 times 2 equals 4 change? The square root of 9 being 3, will that change ever in the future? And it's mathematical knowledge works, right? We can build things with mathematics. And that doesn't seem to be something that evolves. Gosh, okay. What do you think? Tell me your thoughts on through the weekly forum. For now, I'm going to say bye. I hope this video was helpful. I had to record it in 2 different days because it's a lot of information, right? So thank you for watching. And once again, question, comments, use the weekly forum. Bye-bye.